Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask on CYC. So today we're going to cover a topic. A lot of you probably haven't even heard of it, and it's one of the most malnourished services in our community. So today we're going to look at service in outreach. So what is outreach? How can it benefit us? Are we lacking in this service? So please tune in, and I want to introduce you to our guest. But before I introduce you, please, the number is 0416 551 292. Please text in your questions, and also if you're courageous enough, give us a call and ask our guest a question live on the show, and we'll answer it for you right now. So let me introduce you to tonight's guest, Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Mina.
It's a pleasure having you on the show, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
So Debbie, I want to get straight into it. A lot of people out there don't know what outreach is. So what is outreach?
Outreach is to, we have a gift within our church, and that is the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, and taking it to the far margins of the community. So beyond the parish walls, into the streets and into the homes of those who perhaps have disengaged with parish life, and to re-engage them, or to those who are yet to hear.
Okay. Debbie, how can outreach service help our youth?
St. John Chrysostom actually states that mission, evangelism or outreach is the spinal column of the entire church life. And if we get that right, all the other departments, Sunday school, youth ministry, general congregation, are enriched and motivated to take the gospel again to themselves, because they have to really believe in what they're saying. So outreach, as those who have been on mission before, we always think, oh, we're going to mission to sort of serve other people, but in serving those, we are served. So it strengthens and it builds on the knowledge that we already have.
Okay, you mentioned before it involves people who've left the parishes. So this service is not just to go out there and evangelize, it's also to look after the people who are still Coptic Christians,
yes,
but don't practice it.
Yes, originally 12 years ago, Exodus was established to target those young people that had disengaged with church life. Over the years, that's modified. We found that if a young person from the Coptic community has left the church, he will have attached himself to other members of the wider community. So by outreaching to them, we often call with those back into an embrace those people that they have friendship with. And it can be very successful that if they bring people with them, that they too can learn of the gospel.
Okay, so the outreach service Exodus that you're involved in.
Yes.
So what are you guys about? What do you guys do?
Okay, in a nutshell, Exodus was established to find, at the time, 12 years ago, we would call them lost sheep. So those young people that had left the parish for whatever reason, and reconnect them with Christ, and then bring them back into the fold so that they again would partake in the sacraments of the church. That, as I said, has been modified, and now we're reaching out to people that are not originally baptized Coptic, and bringing Christ to them. And only recently we had a very young man of 14 who lives with us, because Exodus provides a holistic service. So whether it's accommodation, or whether it's tutoring, or whether it's referral to a drug rehab centre, or whether it's counselling, those young people will come to us, and then we will look after those needs, and as well, through our service, expose them to the love of God. So that young person was 13 when he came to us, and he came through the church service of Chaos out in St. Abanoob's Church. He's Afghani background and non-Christian, and he was homeless, and so we took him in. He's now been with us almost a year. Within 3 months, he was witnessing and being exposed to the priests of the church and to the community of Christians. Then His Grace Bishop Agathon came from Brazil and was speaking to this young man, and he actually does attend a Coptic school, and he requested baptism. And now he sings El Han really well and is partaking in communion and is one of us.
Look, I want to talk on let's talk about a sensitive topic. I know there's a lot of misconceptions out there about Exodus.
Yes.
I want to let's bring it out there.
Okay.
But let me ask one question.
Yeah.
Is Exodus, the service Exodus, or what you guys do, is it just for the lost sheep, or are you a community that anyone can be part of?
Okay. Exodus Youth Works has been blessed by His Holiness, the late His Holiness Pope Shenouda III, and by His Holiness Pope Tawadros, and many of our fathers, the bishops, and many of the priests. We are part of the church. We're not a church youth meeting. We are not a church. We are servants of that church. And so the misconception came because it's pretty radical service. It's not Sunday school and it's not youth meeting. My background is Sunday school and youth meeting. This is not that. We have to deal with a particular kind of youth that has challenges and is living at risk. So we have to be very frank, we have to be very open, we have to take behaviour that comes to us and then try and surround that young person with a good community so that we can promote change. That's radical. And people used to think that, okay, we would allow people, one of the misconceptions was that we allowed people to take drugs at Exodus. Now this is ridiculous because we're fighting drug use. So why would we allow that? We do, however, allow young people with addictions to come to us and to seek healing and support until they get their life back. So originally, many years ago, we would meet in a park. And 2 years we spent in a park meeting young people. Yes, those young people were in a park and they were smoking. And yes, this servant was with them. I wasn't smoking, but we sat there in the park and people had a problem with that. Now, I can't go to a park and say, stop smoking, but I can talk to you about Christ and I can talk to you about what's going on in your life. And that's where the real misconceptions came from. We take people as they are and we love them and we work in the knowledge that the slow work of God will come when time is ready and when that person's ready.
Yeah. So you pretty much preach Christianity.
Absolutely.
But you focus on people who've segregated themselves from the church. But what I want to ask is, I'm a member of the church.
Yes, and I too.
But I like what you guys do. Can I come?
Absolutely. We have protocol with His Grace Bishop Daniel here in the Diocese of Sydney. So if someone comes from or contacts us and says, I would like to serve in Exodus, there is a formal form that if you really do get serious about your wanting to serve with us, that your confession father would you'd go back to your confession father with this form and he would look it over and talk to you about, are you ready to serve at that level? If everyone's happy, absolutely. We need all the servants we can get. We are exhausted. We would call everyone to come fishing with us. And it's important to remember that Exodus is like a fishing net. So we can catch people and we can hold them. But the ultimate aim is to get these young people back into communion, back into the sacraments of the church. And we're not a church. So therefore, for the whole healing to happen, the servants must again fish within that net and pull them back. And so we need you more than, anything. So yes, come and serve.
You guys have an event, the spoken word poetry slams.
Yes.
You have it once a month. I'm becoming a regular with these.
Yes,
But-
I've seen you there.
But there's a reason why I'm becoming regular with it. I think it's great that you guys have given the opportunity to people get out there and liberate themselves and speak out and show the talent, the hidden talents that are out there. There's a lot of talent that's in our community that we don't know of.
Absolutely. The arts part of our community is somewhat sort of neglected.
It's suppressed.
So, and that platform is there for the musicians and for the spoken word poetry to happen, and art. If you've noticed, we've sort of incorporated young artists to come in and paint during those 3 hours. It is a platform for expression, but it's also a platform for any trauma to be sort of released a little bit. And you'd be surprised. You've heard the poetry. Some of them, it just allows them to speak the truth in a very comfortable and non-judgmental environment. And you can see that sigh of relief after they're finished. That's been going 2 years now, believe it or not. In August, I think July, it'll be 2 years. And we're now officially on the Australian Poetry Slam circuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone wants to come, what are the details for this slam?
Website and Facebook, the usual. But every second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m, doors are open at our South Granville drop-in centre. And yes, you're welcome to come and listen or participate.
Oh, and your website, Exodus
youthworks.org.au. Yeah.
I remember there's one person that comes to mind every time I think of the poetry slam, where he started crying on stage in front of everyone, and he's a big guy and he's a very strong guy for him to cry. And the story that he was portraying up there, he came from having no community to being loved and in a community, and I'm sure he was talking about Exodus through his poetry.
Yes,
And
he's a lovely guy. Kinship and community are absolutely the essential elements for this service. Because if you're trying to get somebody away from bad company, you just can't leave a void. You have to create new company. And so Exodus is a community, and we believe that kinship is that spirit that will call you home. You're part of the family, come back, we're here. And to the point where they're so relaxed that they will quite easily show their emotion of being lost. And the name Exodus is because we were in the wilderness. We work and serve in the wilderness, and we have to walk people home back to the promised land. And he was just one that was lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go for a quick break.
Yep.
And we'll come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Thank you, Mina.
So just a reminder to our viewers, the phone number is 0416 551 292. If you have a question that you want to text in so we can ask Debbie for you, please send in your question. Or if you want to call up and ask her a question yourself, please feel free to do so. So the number is 0416 551 292. Thank you.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Hi, and welcome back to Ask. Today we're talking about outreach, involved in outreach, and why we as youth are not getting involved or doing something such as outreach services. So if you have a question about the topic, we have Debbie with us today. So the phone number is 0416 551 292. Please send in your text, or if you're courageous enough, give us a call and we'll answer your question right now live on the show. So Debbie, let's get back into it. And I want to ask you, what's the difference between the outreach that you do than the outreach that the priests of our parishes do when they go out there to look for the youth that have left the church?
I don't think we could even compare ourselves with what the priests are doing. They have the full gamut of church families and youth and children and elderly. Exodus is a little bit specialized. So we work hand in hand with the fathers of the church. So we get referrals, perhaps. Maybe the priest knows of a family where the young person just refuses to go to church and won't even see a priest when he visits, then, or if there is an issue, whether it be a trauma from a family issue or whether it's addiction of some sort, with all the addictions that we deal with day to day, then we can move in and focus entirely on that young person. So the priest has the job of the whole family. We would only be working with the young person. So we have all the resources for drug referrals, we have counsellors, we have programs that the young person could slot into. So of course we have to get contact, and we do that through a network of other young people. So somebody knows somebody who knows somebody. And that's the sort of difference between, I suppose, and we go anywhere. We are in the streets, we are looking and going where young people are. So that might be a little bit difficult for some of the priests. I'm brought up in this country, and the youth themselves are brought up, and if they're strong and they're guided and they're directed and they're disciplined and led, we can go to places where others can't go.
Debbie, if someone out there, one of the viewers, knows of someone and they want to help them,
yep.
How can they reach you guys?
Our telephone is on our website, which is www.exodusyouthworks.org.au. They can just ring us in the office. We've got 2 offices, one in the east of Sydney in Rockdale, one in the west, South Granville, and we serve out of St Abanoobs at Blacktown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Debbie, we just got a caller that just
Yep.
come in, so we'll welcome the caller to air. Hi, caller.
Hi Debbie, how are you?
Hello.
So I've got a friend that she's having problems at home, and her parents' relationship isn't very good or stable. She feels like she wants to run away from home, but she can't escape her family. How can she reach out to Exodus without her parents finding out, because they might get her in trouble? And her dad is very abusive and drinks a lot. And the priests have tried to intervene, but nothing is changing.
And how old is that person roughly?
About 24.
Okay, all right. I just have to check whether they're underage. If that young person can call us, and with in partnership with the fathers of that particular parish, then we can address some of the trauma that's going on in the family. We may give her strategies to deal with the situation. There are always ways to make life easier. So if she just contacts us, then we can start working straight away.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Okay. They're tough times. Yeah. I mean, we have family counsellors, we have youth counsellors, Christian counsellors, and again, the fathers of the church are working with us. And that young person needs to be empowered and to know how to handle that situation. And if they've got support and they've got someone behind them, just that knowledge is often enough to get that family through that crisis.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, caller, for your question. So, Debbie, why would youth leave the church?
The ultimate question. Of course, there are a myriad of reasons. If we group them together, there could be, when we speak to them, there is shame attached to some of them, judgment, they've been judged harshly, misunderstood. The third culture syndrome. So you've got a young person that's born in Australia from Egyptian heritage. They don't see themselves as fully Egyptian, they don't speak Arabic very well, and they don't read and write. And on the other hand, they're not really Australian. And so they become a third culture, and that can be a little bit unsettling for some years. So sometimes they just don't fit in. They may look different. They may have different friends that the community might be judging, in just not understanding their Australian friends. And these are all reasons for people to feel alienated. Yeah. Maybe a gender issue. It could be an addiction. So you can't rock up, if you've got, you've been drinking, you're not going to get out of bed on a Sunday morning. You look pretty dreadful and people are going to say, hey, you've been drinking. So it starts building in their mind why they don't want to go. And it may be a misconception, quite easily, but it's real to that young person.
Could it be as small, well, nothing is small, trivial, but could it be as an experience like an arm told you off at church, and ever since then you've created the fear for going to church?
Yeah, I mean, we can all tell stories of friends who have said, oh, somebody said something, and, teenagers and young people can be quite fiery, and it's just set something off, and like, I'm not going there, they don't understand me, they don't know where I'm coming from. It could be a family issue that has been going on for so long, and they become resentful. So they say, well, here we are, we're saying we're Christian, but look where we live, the callers just said the father's drinking a lot. That in our community is a taboo. And so it's hard for that young person to be true to themselves. So how can they be themselves if people will judge them and their families?
So Debbie, your service, you go out to find these people and you go out and create an environment that's more comfortable for them. But is the initial goal to bring them back to church?
Bring them back to Christ.
Christ, yes, but I'm asking because I'm not aware. So
Yeah.
Are we also trying to bring these youth back to
Absolutely.
church?
Exodus Youth Works is not a church. We are not. Can't offer the sacraments. So we can send out a net, gather them in, and then from there start healing the problems that they may be encountering. But of course we need the body and blood of Christ. We need the prayers of the fathers. We need absolution. We need a place of spiritual uplifting, which is the liturgy. And so of course we have to end up back at the promised land. But of course reintroducing or reconnecting with Christ must be our first point of call.
Of course, yeah. But
And sometimes they find us, by the way.
yeah,
It's not always us finding them. They find us.
of course.
Yeah.
But how can we encourage them to come back? What are techniques that we can adopt as servants to encourage these youth to come back? Even if they could be friends of us that we went to Sunday school together. What can I do? What can we do,
There is no greater power than love and kindness. Going the extra mile. Seeking people out and genuinely asking them, not because you want to increase the numbers in your youth meeting, but because you genuinely miss that part of the body of Christ. That sort of genuineness will override any gang mentality, any worldly influence in that young person's life. Real love, unconditional love, unconditional. We were with Amber Angelos last night, and he was mentioning the Samaritan woman. The disciples were out buying food. Their concern was themselves. Christ needed to go to Samaria. He loved that enemy, that woman, that Samaritan. And when you go and you just say, I'm going to sit here with you in the gutter until you're ready to come home, shows a great deal of love. It's a long journey. I mean, people can be lost for 40 years in the wilderness. And it's cold and it's uncomfortable, and people may think that you're doing crazy stuff. But all we do is walk people home. We sit until you're ready to come home.
So Debbie, as members of the church or congregation and as servants, what can we do to proactively prevent youth from leaving?
I believe everyone in the church, they don't deliberately do anything to lose people, That's not an easy question to answer, Mina. I think we can always do more. We can always be welcoming. We can always be changing and sort of, doing something with the youth facilities in the church. St. Abanoob Church a couple of years ago called Exodus out to sort of, the numbers that were a bit sort of down. And we painted a room up and we put, I think you've seen it, it's just a great youth room. That sort of change, if you like, it stays ahead of where the youth are. They're comfortable, it's warm, there's food, it's a great atmosphere, there's, you know, someone playing the guitar. We're not changing anything that is substantial to our faith. We're just accommodating the youth of today. So that's important. Going, you know, sort of language and environment is really important for youth. Understanding their issues. Get educated. We need to educate our people about drug use, about the laws of Australia, about domestic violence. These are all things that we could do as servants of the church. And not to judge. If someone rocks up with tattoos on their face, try not to see them.
Yeah. You know, you reminded me of an experience. I was actually sitting in church and a female walked in with extensive tattoo work done on her body, and the reaction that I saw from people, their faces, just their jaws dropped and they started murmuring to each other. And imagine this is the lady that came to see Christ, and she came to the church, and imagine the murmuring that she must have seen, or people's jaw dropping. It must have been hard for her, you know.
Hard enough to come back, but hard to sit there, gosh. And yet Christ would walk into a room, and I'm sure he would make a beeline for her and sit right next to her and say, I'm going to hang out with you so we're not alone.
Yeah.
Until we can do that, until we don't murmur, and until we say, hey, I'm going to sit with you.
So one thing we can do as Christians is, the first thing is be welcoming and not judge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, maybe we wouldn't have this problem in the first place.
Yeah, prevention's better than cure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I got a question that just came in from an audience member. They're asking, what's the difference between outreach and preaching?
Gosh, okay. I'm not one to... Preaching to me is like on a corner with a Bible and sort of, you know, you're going to hell unless, fill in the blank. Outreach is leaving your comfortable couch and sitting in the gutter and saying, do you need, not even what do you need, I'm going to sit here and we're going to be hungry together, and I'm going to have my sandwich and I'm going to share it with you, and I do this because God loves me and I love him, we love you. I think it's not enough to say God bless you, and that's preaching, and you're going to hell if you don't do this. Outreach is leaving your comfortable zone and stepping outside of your comfort area into an area that you're not comfortable with, and saying, I love you because God loved me first. I think that's what outreach is.
Yeah. And also if we go to other countries and serve the people there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's another topic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're all sort of out to get outside of Australia, but our own backyard is full of people that really are thirsty to know Christ.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
Yes.
I remember I asked some people to, because I collect clothes for donations for the homeless. Yeah. And then one of the person that I asked me, is this going to Egypt or staying local? And I said to them, no, it's for the people here. And they said, no, I'd rather send it to Egypt, which everyone's entitled to their opinion. But the homeless here are the same as the homeless in Egypt. Yeah, look, always encourage someone that says that to come with me next week to Cocos Food Van and see. The face of homelessness is different than in Egypt. I mean, I've been to Egypt many, many times and into orphanages, and I've been to Africa 20-something times. There are poor everywhere. Our poor here, Mother Teresa says that it's not that they're necessarily starving, but they are in need of love. And if it's a warm coat, the face of homelessness in Australia, mental illness, abuse, drug addiction. And people say, oh, well, they've been taking drugs, that's their fault. Well, if you know if you ask one more question, why are they taking drugs, you will find a trauma
And then you can start sort of understanding why. And then you put the coat on them. You know that they're cold. And they need family. People need each other desperately. You know, we're a community, are we not?
Yeah.
In the Trinity itself.
That's right. Okay, well that's all we have for today's show, and I'd like to thank you for being on the show with us. It's been a pleasure having you on board.
Mina.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in for today's show. Just to let you guys know, for next week we don't have an episode on for next Thursday. However, we will be resuming the following Thursday after that. So stay tuned, because we'll be coming back with more controversial and more taboo topics that are not covered in your regular youth meetings. So the phone number is 0416 551 292. So stay tuned with us as we come back with more topics for you guys. I'm Mina Ibrahim from your CYC studios in Sydney. Good night and God bless.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Are you interested in youth problems?
I have many friends who would say that their body is their business.
Do you wonder of specific matters in your life?
The reason why they created that choir was to stop women from actually talking and from gossiping. And
Are you afraid of making some quick decisions?
Abortion shouldn't happen because we don't know if the fetus is a person.
Do you want to know many